Building a terrarium, a fun and easy way to add nature to your living space. This is written and recorded by Aydin Sarki. So, up first is a couple terrarium examples. The main things to note is the biodiversity within the terrariums, the different plants that are featured in each one, as well as the size difference that you can see. The one on the left here that I have here, it's probably about 4 feet by 4 feet. It contains a whole bunch of plants. It likely contains an animal somewhere in there, perhaps a gecko or a frog that enjoys climbing. And that's what's great about these terrariums is that they can be not only homes for plants, but for animals as well. This mason jar in the middle here is a great example of a sealed terrarium, which is the type of terrarium that you set up initially and then you just leave it alone. Now, it's likely that the plants in this sealed terrarium are fake, but other terrariums that are constructed in similar ways um, can be functional and grow plants within the terrarium. And then this one on the right here is a great example of a medium-sized terrarium that is also um, openable. It has a top that can be opened, and so it's very adjustable inside. You're able to kind of change the flora and fauna within the jar. So, why build a terrarium? Well, it can add a scenic piece of nature to your living space. As you can see, a bunch of these would really light up a living room or a bedroom. You get to be artistic with a new medium, which is always great. It's almost like its own form of sculpture. And then to house a new pet, maybe. So if you're gonna pick up a gecko or a frog or a turtle or a snake, you're gonna need a terrarium. So why not build it yourself instead of paying the extra price for the pre-built ones? So the first step to building the terrarium is to select a container. The biggest choice when selecting a container is how large of a container would you like to use? Let me back reference to these. You can see the three different sizes available here. You can have a 4 foot tall one, you can have one the size of a mason jar, you can have one the size of an everyday house lamp. It's really all about how much space are you willing to give up, and will an animal be living in this terrarium? If an animal's living within the terrarium, you're going to want a larger terrarium in order to ensure the comfortability of the animal, which is what I go more into detail on this slide for. So for 2 to 3 frogs, about a 10 to 15 gallon tank. For a turtle, bump it up to at least 20 gallons. And for a snake, a 10 to 15 gallon tank will do just fine, depending on the snake. A small to medium sized snake would do well in a 10 to 15, but obviously a large snake would need more room than that. For further details on the specific needs of whatever pet you're picking up, just look on the details of the pet store that you're purchasing. They have many experts that be willing to help you, as well as online research will help you be best prepared for your new pet. So here's an example on the left here of a frog terrarium that I suppose could also work for a gecko or a climbing snake. And you can see just one of the main things I want to point out here is just how artistic it is. The biodiversity within the plant. He's got this person obviously set up like an ivy plant as a background here, and then a bunch of twigs and plants and a nice little landscape here for the animals to enjoy. You could imagine a feeding bowl or a watering system somewhere within this tank. And then this one over here is great for amphibians, such as a turtle, because it has this half land, half water construct as well. And personally, I would go a little bit larger, depending on the turtle size here. But other than that, I thought this one was a great example because it shows that, it can be artistic and house an animal, which I really like about both of these. So one of the biggest things is selecting plants. Since plants within a terrarium are usually hard to access, it's important to choose plants that are generally low maintenance. The best plants for a terrarium require just a little moisture, such as moss, cacti, ferns, air plants. You may also include common houseplants such as pothos or succulents. And guys, there's no shame in putting fake plants in your terrarium. Oftentimes, plants within a terrarium can be a little high maintenance or hard to access, as I previously pointed out here. Watering these plants, fertilizing these plants, it all comes with experience of owning the terrarium. But to a beginner, there's no shame in having a fake plant in there. And those that look at it probably aren't going to be able to tell the difference. And if you have an animal in there, it's probably going to enjoy it just as much. In my personal opinion, it's better for you to have a fake plant in there than a plant that's potentially poisonous or toxic to the animal that you're housing. Um, and so my final point here is to have fun with it, right? It's important to remember a terrarium is a piece of art. You don't need to include only living things. Miniature sculptures or fake plants can add a flair to your terrarium. So with these three examples here, I really wanted to highlight this final point that, you don't only have to have living things. And a pet isn't required to have a terrarium. A terrarium is kind of like a flower vase. It just lights up the room that it's in. And so with these three examples, I wanted to make three little points. So with this one on the left here, you can see that this one is an open terrarium, obviously very accessible through his hole, but this person went for more of a natural landscape. And this is what I meant on the first slide by bringing a piece of nature into your home. So you can see here that this person put gravel, probably rocks that they may have found outside, and these plants actually seem to be fake, if I had to guess. But obviously, this terrarium would light up any room you put it in. I'm a big fan of this terrarium personally. Um, and so this one on the left here really highlights a lot of the points that I wanted to make about, it's all about developing a natural landscape. It doesn't matter what elements you use or if the elements are even real. It's all about the look. And if you have an animal, it's about their comfortability as well. So this one in the middle makes a point that I also wanted to make that, terrariums, they're great, they're fun, they're artistic, but they don't have to be this serious. So in this one, I really like this one. Does this person decide to include plastic dinosaurs in their terrarium? And that's a great example of, it's important to have fun. Don't take it too serious. Throw a couple plastic dinosaurs in there and call them your pets. Why not? This is a piece of art. This is, nobody's coming over to your house to critique every single thing in your house. Make what makes you happy. And I love this example for that reason. And then this one over here on the right, I really liked as well because it's an example of kind of like a fine art in the form of a terrarium. It's like, how people take sculpture to its absolute limit. Well, I view terrariums as a form of sculpture, and I view this as a really great pinnacle of that form of sculpture, because in here you have the natural landscape, you have the nice design, you have a great bottle house in the terrarium, and you even have this almost like Japanese garden setup within here. And so it acts not only as a natural landscape, also, it's very likely these plants are real, judging by the amount of substrate in there. And so it acts as this natural landscape and piece of art at the same time. And this one I really like as an example because, as I said, I view it as an example of taking the form of media to its next level, right? Like high class. It's fancy. It's a fancier example, and that's why I'm a fan. So hopefully the points I made today will help encourage you to build a new terrarium. Get out there and go make a piece of art that lives within your house, literally. All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.